Welcome back, Finxters. Now, today we will be learning couple of things. One, how to store scraped data in a text file, and then we will learn how to store scraped data in a CSV file. Now, let's talk a bit about this. After scraping huge chunks of data, you need to store them in a proper format. You may want to store the data directly into a text file, or you may opt to store it in a more structured way in a CSV file or an Excel sheet. You may otherwise want to store it in a database if you want to store it in a more structured way. Thus, it becomes very important to understand how to store scraped data in a specific file format or in a database. Now, before you scrape or store data, it is essential to have a clear picture of how the data looks like. Probably storing a more structured data that is consistent in a CSV or Excel format would make more sense. Whereas if data being scraped from different pages are haphazard, it would be easier if you store such data in different files separately. So in this lecture, we will find out some of these ways to store the scraped data in different formats. We will also learn how to store scraped data in a database, but we will learn that in the next video. In this video, we are going to learn how we can store the scraped data in a simple text file, and then we will learn how we can store the scraped data in a CSV file. So without further delay, let us learn how we can implement these. Now, just a prerequisite here. Before we begin, I just want to let you know that the script to scrape the data will be provided in the description below. I have also created an entire video explaining how to scrape the data from a particular website, which we will have a look in just a minute. So please go through that lecture, or at least go through the script to understand how we are actually scraping the data, and then we can move on to store the data in a text file or in a CSV file, as will be shown in this video. So this was the website from which we scraped the name, the price, the description, and the rating of each product present in this website. So as I mentioned, the script or the link to the script will be provided in the description below. But this is just a recap of what we scraped. And we are going to store all these data in a text file now. So this is the script that was used to scrape the data. That is the title or the name of the product, the price, the description, and then the rating. Now let's go ahead and let's create a separate function within which we will write our code to store the scraped data in the text file. So let's name that method as save underscore to underscore file. Now to create the file, we need to use the open method. So f equals open, where f represents the file object. Now we have our open function, and within it, we have to pass couple of parameters. The first parameter is the file name. Let's name it data.txt. And then the next parameter is the mode in which we want to open the file. Since we are going to write to this file, hence we have to open it in the write mode. So what this will do is that it will create a file initially by the name data.txt, and then it will start writing into the file since we have opened it in the write mode. Now our task is to iterate over all the scraped data items and then store them one by one in the file. For that, we are going to use a for loop. So for I in, and we will iterate across the length of these lists. So each of these lists, which is title, price, description, and rating, will have an equal length. Now, why so? That is because the number of products present in the page or in the website are same. So if there are 10 titles in the given website, then there will be 10 prices as well. There will also be 10 descriptions. That means a description for each of the 10 products present in the website. And then each product will have a rating. That means we will also have 10 ratings. Now we do not have 10 items present in the website. We have more than that. So we have to find the length of these lists. So if we go ahead and find the length of any one list, then that would easily give us the length of every other list. So we have to iterate over the length of each list. So for that, I'm going to find the length of the list title. You can also find the length of any other list, which can be price, description, or even rating. Now, since we need to iterate over a range, so this has to go inside the range method or the range function. Well, our task becomes pretty simple now. All we have to do now is to use the write method to write to this file that we created, that is data.txt, and we will be using the file object f to write to the file. So let us first write the name of the product into the file. So the name of the product is within the title list. So title at I. That means in each iteration, one product name will be written to the file. And then let's go ahead and add a new line. So this means once the name of the product has been written into the file, the cursor moves on to the next line. Now let's go ahead and write the price of the product in our file. So once again, we are going to use our file object f and then the write method. And within it, we are going to pass the price at the ith index. And then once again, we have a new line character, which will help us to move the cursor to the next line in the file. Let us go ahead and do the same thing for the description and the rating. Okay. So we have now successfully written the title or the name of the product, the price of the product, the description of the product, and the rating received by the product. Now, please note that when we extracted the rating, it was an integer. So while writing to the file, what we did was we converted that integer to a string and then wrote it to the file. So that is what has been done in this line. Okay. So this happens in every iteration as long as there are products present in the website. Now, in order to distinguish between the data for each product, let us go ahead and let us add a separator at the end of each loop so that we can visualize the data that is being stored within the file in a better way. So this is the separator that I have used. Now you will find why I use this, because this will help me to visualize the data that I'm storing in a better way. I'll show this to you in a while once the file is created. Okay, now we are done writing to the file. Once the entire data has been written to the file, all we need to do is to go ahead and close the file. So that's it. That's how simple this is. This will help us to write the data that we have scraped into the text file. So let us go ahead and execute this piece of code and let's find out if this works or not. Okay, our program ran successfully. Now let's go ahead and let's find out if we have a file by the name data.txt. Oops, how silly. I didn't even call the method and then I'm expecting it to create a file. What we have to do is to go ahead and call this method. Only then it will be executed. Now let's go ahead and execute this piece of code once again. Okay, hopefully the file will be created now. Yes, there we go. So we have data.txt and there we go. Let me copy this file, right click on the file, click on copy. Now let me paste it on my desktop. Now let's visualize it once again. There we go. And see, this is why I used this separator. This is the name of the first product. Then this is the price associated to that product. This is the description of the product. And then this right here is the rating received by the product. So this entire section represents all the data acquired for the first product. Then this section represents the data acquired for the second product, and so on. So this is what the separator helps us to do. It is nothing but a better way to visualize the data that has been stored in the file. Okay, with that, we have successfully learned how to store the scraped data in a text file. Now let us go ahead and learn how we can store the same data in a CSV file. Now, in order to store the data in a CSV file, we need to use the CSV module. So our first task is to go ahead and import the CSV module. So let's do that. Let's import CSV. Okay, we have now successfully imported the CSV module. Well, now let's go ahead and create a function within which we will write our code to store the scraped data in a CSV file. Let's name that function as save underscore to underscore CSV. Now let's go ahead and create a list which will store the column headers within our CSV file. So there we go. The name of that list is row underscore head, and within it, we have the column headers, which are title, price, description, and rating. Now things get a little tricky here. We are going to use another list by the name data, and within this list, we are going to store the title, price, description, and rating of each product. Hence, for the purpose of storing these data into our list data, we need the help of a for loop and the zip method. So let's do that. For name, comma, amount, comma, EESC, comma, rate in, and then we will pack the title, price, description, and rating with the help of the zip method. So let's have a quick look at what the zip method does. The zip function takes an arbitrary number of iterables and aggregates them to a single iterable, which is a zip object. So in our case, the iterables are the title list, the price list, the description list, and the rating list. And then the zip method is packing all these iterables or all these lists into a single zip object. Now you will soon find out as we move inside this loop why we needed this zip method. So now we are inside the for loop, and now we will simply append the title to our list data. So data.append name. Then similarly, we will go ahead and append the price. Then we will go ahead and append the description. And finally, we will append the rating. Okay, now before we proceed further, let us come out of this loop and let us visualize what data stores at this point of time. So let's print data. And now let's call this method. Okay, and now let's execute this code. Okay, so as we can see that this list data stores the name of the first product, then the price of the first product, then the description of the first product, and finally the rating of the first product. After that, it stores the name of the second product, then it stores the price of the second product, then the description of the second product, and finally the rating of the second product. Then it moves on to the third product, and this goes on until we reach the final or the last product in the website. So what this also means is that we have successfully arranged the name, the price, the description, and the rating of each product in our list data. Our next task is to go ahead and segregate these values for each product individually and store them in another list. So that means we will create another list which will store the name, price, description, and rating of each product in different lists. So we are basically going to create a list of lists. So if you are confused, please do not worry. We will soon visualize what's happening. So in order to segregate the data, let's go ahead and create a list comprehension, which looks something like this. Now I will be explaining you how this list comprehension is functioning. But before we understand how this is functioning, it is essential to visualize what this list comprehension stores. So let's go ahead and print rows, which is our list comprehension. Okay, now let's execute this code once again. And there we go. So let's have a look. We have a list or an outer list, and within this, we have another list which stores the name of the first product, the price of the first product, the description of the first product, and then finally the rating of the first product. With that, we come to the end of the first inner list, and then begins another list. which stores the data for the second product. And then we have another list which stores the data for the third product. And this goes on until the last product. Now, if you want to visualize this further, let us go ahead and let us create another loop for I in rows, and then let's print I. Now let's see what's stored within rows one by one. So as you can see, this makes it more clear that each item within the list rows is also a list which stores the name, price, description, and rating for each product. So this is what our list comprehension helps us to achieve. Now let's go ahead and let's understand how this is working. Since we have to group the title, the price, the description, and the rating for each product into a single list, hence we are extracting values from our list data in groups of 4 with the help of this variable I. Now what's I? I is a variable which lies within the range of 0 until the length of the list data. So what was data? Let's print it once again. So this was the list data. And now I starts iterating from the index 0, and then it goes on until the entire length of this list with a step size of 4. Now please note, this is very important. This is the step size, which is 4. So let's try to understand what this helps us to do by breaking this down iteration by iteration. So in the first iteration, the items which are at the index 0, 1, 2, and then 3, or the third index, are extracted and stored in a list. Now that I has a step size of 4, so now we will begin the second iteration from the fourth index. So this means when we move on to the fourth index, then we find that at the fourth index, we have the name of the second product. And once again, in the second iteration, the item at the fourth index, the item at the fifth index, the item at the sixth index, and finally the item at the seventh index are extracted and stored within a list, which is then put inside this list comprehension rows. Then we move on to the third iteration, and since the step size is 4, so we move to the eighth index. And the eighth index now stores the name of the third product. So this process is repeated in each iteration, and these values are grouped in sets of 4 and then stored in a list within our list comprehension. So that is why when we printed this list rows, we got an output which looked something like this, which was a list of lists consisting of the name, price, description, and rating for each product contained within a single list. Well, you might be wondering why we are doing this. You'll soon come to know the reason behind this, but let me give you a clear picture of this. As you can see that each inner list stores the information for a particular product. So this also means that this list or each list within our list rows is representing an entire row within the CSV file. So this inner list right here, which I highlighted on the screen, represents the first row within our CSV file. Similarly, the second list represents the second row of our CSV file. So this is exactly what this list comprehension rows helps us to achieve. Well, we have done all the hard work, and all that remains to be done is to store the data that we have segregated into our CSV file. So we have to go ahead and create a new CSV file. And this is how we create or open a CSV file with the help of the open function. And within this, we pass 3 parameters. The first parameter is the name of our CSV file, and I have named it data.csv. Then we have to provide the mode in which we want to open the file. Since we are going to write to this CSV file, hence we have to open it in the write mode. And then we have the new line parameter. Well, let's try to understand now what this new line parameter will help us to do. So for that, I have opened up this question asked in Stack Overflow, and let's read this answer. So let's not go into too much details. Let's start reading it from here. Not including the new line parameter will probably add an extra line ending which you don't want. Including the new line parameter allows the CSV module to handle line endings itself. So this means this parameter new line will help us to handle line endings within our CSV file. If you do not include this new line parameter, then what you'll find is that after each row, there is an empty row below it. And then we have another row and then another empty row, and this goes on. So we do not want any empty rows within our CSV file. I'll help you to visualize this once we are done with the code, but I hope that the concept of the new line parameter is clear. If not, please wait for a while and you'll soon find out the importance of the new line parameter. Okay, we have now successfully opened our CSV file and we have named our file object as CSV file, as you can see. Let's move inside our open method. We now need to create the CSV writer object, which will help us to write into the CSV file. So let's go ahead and do that. Okay, so this is how you create the CSV writer object. Now, what's the CSV writer? So if you think of the CSV file as a page, then CSV writer is nothing but the pen which is used to write on the page. As simple as that. Now we have the page, that is the CSV file. We also have the pen, which will be used to write into the CSV file, which is the CSV writer. But now we need to write the actual data into the file. For that, we need the help of a method known as write row. Write row is a method of the CSV module which helps you to write an entire row into the CSV file. So let's use the CSV writer object dot, and then let's use the write row method. So initially, the first row that we want to add to our CSV file is the heading. So we stored the headings within our list row underscore head. So we have to simply go ahead and pass this row underscore head within our write row method. Okay. Now our next task is to write the entire data into the CSV file. And we segregated and stored the entire data within our list rows. So that's what we are going to write into our CSV file. But a problem with the write row method is that it helps to write only a single row within the CSV file. So we need another function or another way which will help us to write all the rows at once within the CSV file. So the name of that method is write rows. So we are going to use the CSV writer object dot write rows and then simply pass the list rows within this write rows method. So this will write all the rows at once within the CSV file. Well, that's it. Hopefully this code will help us to store the required data in our CSV file. Let's go ahead and let's execute this piece of code. There we go. We have data.csv file successfully created within our project folder. Let's copy this file and let's paste it on the desktop. Now let's open this file and let's find out if we have the data. And there we go. We have all the titles. Then we have all the prices corresponding to each title or each product. Then we also have the descriptions of each product. And finally, we have the ratings of each product. Now, before we wrap this up, let's go ahead and find out what happens if we remove this parameter new line. Let's delete this. Now let's execute this piece of code once again. Okay, we now have the data.csv file. Let's copy this. And as usual, let's paste it on our desktop and let's open it up. And there we go. As you can see that there is an empty row between each row that contains the actual data. And we do not want that. We want to eliminate these empty rows. And that's what the new line parameter was helping us to do. So let us now go ahead and once again pass the new line parameter within our open function. Okay, wonderful. With that, we come to the end of this lecture. Please join me in the next lecture wherein we will be learning how to store the scraped data in a database.